The soft blue glow of the radar console reflected on Kira's scaled face as she adjusted the sensitivity settings. Her four-fingered hands moved with practiced ease across the controls of the patrol vessel Starweaver. The ship hummed quietly around her as it drifted through the outer reaches of Zolaxian space. Kira's large amber eyes blinked slowly as she watched the empty radar screen. Night shift was always quiet, but she didn't mind. The peaceful hours gave her time to think about the stories her grandfather used to tell her. Stories about humans. Thinking about those myths again. "Navigator?" Officer Malk called from his station. His tone was teasing but kind. "They're not just myths," Kira replied, not taking her eyes off the screen. Grandfather worked with the historical archives. He saw the records. Malk made a clicking sound with his mouth that Zolaxians used to show friendly disagreement. Records can be mistaken. No one has seen a human in 200 years. If they ever existed at all, they're long gone now. Kira didn't argue. She had this conversation many times before. Most Zolaxians thought humans were just stories made up to entertain children. Tales of bizarre creatures with only 2 arms and no tail, with thin skin that couldn't change color, who breathed only oxygen and came from a planet with crushing gravity. But the stories said so much more. They told of beings who could survive injuries that would kill any Zolaxian, who could go days without sleep, who could eat almost anything, beings whose minds worked in ways no one could predict, who created art and music that moved even alien hearts, who fought with a fierce determination that frightened their enemies. "Officer Malk, I'm going to check the long-range scanners," Kira said, rising from her station. "Suit yourself," Malk replied, already half asleep at his post. In the scanner room, Kira pulled up the classified files she wasn't supposed to access. Her grandfather had given her the codes before he died. The files contained all the information the Zolaxian government had about humans. It wasn't much, mostly fragmented records from the time before the Great Silence. 200 years ago, human signals had simply stopped. Their ships disappeared from known space. Their colonies went quiet. Some said they destroyed themselves in a war. Others believed they moved to a distant part of the galaxy. The most common theory was that they were wiped out by the Vraxians. Though no one could prove it, a small alert sound pulled Kira from her thoughts. She looked at the long-range scanner and froze. Something was out there at the very edge of the scanner's range, something that didn't match any known ship signature in the database. She enhanced the signal, heart beating faster. The object was moving at incredible speed, following no regular pattern. It would surge forward, then stop completely, then change direction. No Zolaxian ship could move like that. No Vraxian ship either. Kira ran a comparison with the old records. The computer worked for several moments, then displayed a result that made her breath catch. Percent match, human vessel design. It was impossible. It had to be an error. But what if it wasn't? Her fingers trembled as she sent the data to her personal device. Commander Vex would never believe her without proof. No one would believe that a human ship had suddenly appeared after 2 centuries of absence. Kira stood nervously outside Commander Vex's office, clutching her datapad tightly. Her tail twitched with anxiety as she waited to be called in. After 3 sharp beeps, the door slid open. Commander Vex sat behind a large desk, his dark green scales showing age spots around his face. His expression was already tired, even though the day had just begun. "Navigator Kira, what is so important that you needed to see me before morning briefing?" His voice was rough with impatience. Kira stepped forward and placed her datapad on his desk. "Sir, I detected an unusual signal last night during my shift. The signature matches old records of human vessels." Vex's face scales shifted to a lighter shade, showing his surprise, but then quickly darkened with doubt. "Humans? You interrupted my morning for a fairy tale?" "It's not a fairy tale, sir. Look at the scan data." Kira tapped the screen, bringing up the readings from last night. The movement patterns, the energy signature, they don't match any known species. Commander Vex studied the data for a moment, then shook his head. "This is nothing but space. Debris affected by a gravity well, or perhaps a sensor malfunction. Humans disappeared 200 years ago, Navigator. Even if they were real, they're gone now. But sir, enough. Vex's scales flashed a warning red. I don't want to hear more about this. Focus on your actual duties. Dismissed. Kira retrieved her data pad and left the office, frustration burning in her chest. She should have expected this reaction. No one believed in humans anymore. During her shift that day, Kira kept one eye on her regular duties and another on the strange signal. It had moved closer to Zolaxian space overnight. If it continued on its current path, it would reach the trading outpost on Varen III within 2 days. As she watched the signal, memories of her grandfather flooded back. She remembered sitting on his lap as a child, listening to his stories. Humans could adapt to almost any environment, he had told her. They called it improvising. When faced with a problem, they would find solutions no one else had thought of. Were they really that smart? Young Kira had asked. Not always smarter, just different. Their minds worked in ways we couldn't predict. That's what made them special and dangerous to their enemies. Her grandfather's eyes had grown distant then. I met one once, you know. Just briefly. A human trader who came to our world looking for minerals. She had hair the color of Zolaxian sunset and a laugh that seemed to break all our rules of sound. She showed me a picture of her home, a planet with vast oceans and green lands. Earth, she called it. Kira had always treasured that story, even though no one else believed it. How could her grandfather have met a human when all records said they disappeared long before he was born? A sudden alert yanked her from her memories. The signal had changed course. It was now heading directly toward a small Zolaxian research station. This was more than space debris. This was a ship under intelligent control. Kira glanced around the bridge. Everyone was busy with routine tasks. No one was paying attention to her screen. She made a quick decision. There was a small scout ship in the Starweaver's Bay. She had certification to pilot it for short-range reconnaissance. If she logged it properly, no one would question her taking it out. Within an hour, Kira was guiding the scout ship away from the Starweaver, following the mysterious signal. She had told Officer Malk she was checking an asteroid anomaly. It wasn't a complete lie. The signal grew stronger as she approached. Her heart raced with both fear and excitement. If she was right, she was about to confirm one of the greatest mysteries in Zolaxian history. If she was wrong, she was risking her career for nothing. Then suddenly, the scout ship's proximity alarm blared. Something large had just dropped out of faster-than-light travel directly ahead of her. Kira's hands froze on the controls as she stared through the view screen. There before her was a ship unlike any she had ever seen. Its design was unmistakably not Zolaxian, not Vraxian, not any known species. The legends were real. Humans had returned. But the evidence was right there on her screen. Something was coming. Something that moved like the ships in her grandfather's stories. Kira looked at the trajectory and realized with a shock that the mysterious vessel was heading directly toward Zolaxian space, not in a hostile way. More like it was lost, searching for something or someone. The story said humans never gave up looking for their friends. They never abandoned their people. Kira made a decision. She would track this signal. She would find this ship. And maybe, just maybe, she would discover if humans were really as remarkable as the stories claimed. She just hoped she wasn't making a terrible mistake. Kira's hands shook as she activated the communication system. The human ship floated silently before her, its metal hull reflecting the distant starlight. It was smaller than she had imagined, about twice the size of her scout vessel, with smooth lines and unusual markings along its side. White letters spelled out a word, Horizon. For several minutes, nothing happened. Kira tried different communication frequencies, remembering the old protocols her grandfather had taught her. This is Navigator Kira of the Zolaxian fleet, she transmitted, first in her own language, then using the simple trade language common to most species in this sector. Please identify yourselves. Her scanner showed the ship was powering up additional systems. Were they preparing weapons? Kira's finger hovered over the emergency retreat controls. Then her communication screen flickered to life. The face that appeared made her gasp. It looked almost like a Zolaxian, but wrong in every detail. No scales, just smooth skin with a light brown color. No tail visible, 2 eyes instead of 3, round pupils instead of slits. And most strange of all, fur on top of the head. A human. "This is Captain Alan Hayes of the Earth vessel Horizon," the being said, speaking perfect trade language. "We're experiencing some technical difficulties. Can you identify our current location?" Kira stared, unable to speak. The stories were real. Humans existed. "Hello? Is our transmission coming through?" the human asked, looking concerned. Kira found her voice. "Yes, I can hear you. You're at the edge of Zolaxian space near the Varan system." The human, Captain Hayes, looked confused. He turned to speak to someone off-screen. Kira heard muffled voices discussing something urgently. When he turned back, his expression was serious. "We don't recognize that system name. Our navigation data doesn't show any Zolaxian territory in this sector." He paused. "What's the current galactic date?" Kira told him. The captain's face paled, noticeably. "That's not possible," he said quietly. "That would mean we've been in cryosleep for over 150 years. A second human appeared on the screen beside him, a female with darker skin and short black fur on her head. "Captain, the chronometer readings match what she's saying. The stasis pods malfunctioned. We were supposed to wake up after only 30 years. Kira watched in fascination as the humans processed this information. Their facial expressions were so easy to read, much more obvious than Zolaxian color changes. "I'm Communications Officer Diane Miller," the female human said, turning to Kira. "May we ask what year humans were last seen in this region?" "According to our records, humans disappeared from known space about 200 years ago," Kira replied. "Most of my people think you were just legends." The two humans exchanged shocked glances. "Disappeared?" Captain Hayes repeated. "That's not possible. There were billions of us across hundreds of colonies." Before Kira could respond, her communication system beeped with an incoming message. Commander Vex's angry face appeared on a second screen. "Navigator Kira, return to the Starweaver immediately. You violated at least 5 protocols by taking that scout ship without proper clearance." "Commander, I've made contact with humans," Kira said quickly. "They're real. I'm sending you visual confirmation now." She transmitted the image of the human ship and its crew. There was a long silence from Commander Vex as he stared at something off-screen. When he looked back at Kira, his scales had turned pale blue with shock. "Bring them to Zolaxia Prime," he said finally. His voice, the journey to Zolaxia Prime took 3 days. During this time, Kira learned more about the humans aboard the Horizon. Besides Captain Hayes and Officer Miller, there were 2 others. Science Officer Greg Winters, a tall human with light skin and yellow head fur, and Security Chief Frank Rodriguez, whose dark eyes constantly scanned for threats. They told Kira their story as their ships traveled together through space. The Horizon had been sent from Earth to establish an outpost in a newly discovered star system. The journey was supposed to take 30 years in cryosleep. Something had gone wrong with their systems, and they had slept for much longer. "What happened to the rest of humanity?" Greg asked Kira as they shared a meal through video communication. The humans ate strange food from packets, while Kira consumed her normal blue nutrition cubes. "I don't know," Kira admitted. "The records are incomplete. There are stories of a great conflict, but no details about who was involved or how it ended." Frank leaned forward, his face serious. "Were there any records of Earth? Our home planet?" Kira hesitated. "There are some old star charts that mark Earth's location, but recent scans show no signs of technology or communication from that system." The humans grew quiet after that. Kira understood their pain. To lose 150 years was bad enough. To learn that their entire civilization might be gone was devastating. As they approached Zolaxia Prime, Kira received a message from Commander Vex. "The High Council is divided about the humans," he told her privately. "The Scientific Council wants to welcome them and learn from them. The Security Directorate wants them contained and questioned. They're not a threat, Kira argued. They're lost and confused. That's what you believe, Vex replied. Others aren't so sure. Be careful, Navigator. Your career is already in danger because of your unauthorized mission. When they reached Zalaxia Prime, the blue-green planet that was home to Kira's people, a fleet of ships surrounded them. The horizon was directed to a special landing pad isolated from the main spaceport. Kira landed her scout ship nearby and waited as a team of officials approached the human vessel. She watched nervously as Captain Hayes and his crew stepped out, for the first time onto Zalaxian soil. The humans looked strange standing among the taller, scaled Zolaxians. Their movements were different. Their bodies moved with an unusual grace despite the higher gravity of Zalaxia Prime. They wore simple, gray uniforms with blue stripes that indicated their ranks. Director Lenz of the Scientific Council stepped forward to greet them. His scales were bright with excitement as he performed the traditional greeting. "Welcome to Zalaxia Prime," he said. "Your presence here is historic. Humans have been absent from our records for 2 centuries. Captain Hayes bowed slightly. "Thank you for your welcome. We have much to learn about what happened during our long sleep." Before Lenz could respond, another Zalaxian pushed forward, Commander Traz of the Security Directorate, his scales dark with suspicion. "How convenient that you appear now, just as the Vraxians increase their attacks on our borders," Traz said. 4 humans in an ancient ship, claiming to know nothing of the past 150 years. "We mean no harm," Captain Hayes said calmly. "We're as surprised to be here as you are to see us." "You will be examined and questioned," Traz insisted. "Your ship will be searched." Director Lenz stepped between them. "They are guests, not prisoners. They will be treated with respect." The 2 Zolaxians faced each other, scales flashing with emotion. Kira could feel the tension in the air. Finally, a compromise was reached. The humans would stay in special quarters, comfortable but secure. Their ship would be examined by a joint team from both councils, and Kira, who had first contact with them, would serve as their guide and liaison. As Kira led the humans to their new quarters, Captain Hayes walked beside her. "Your people don't trust us," he said quietly. "Some do, some don't," Kira replied. "Humans are legends to us, and legends can be both wonderful and frightening." Hayes nodded, looking up at the alien sky. "I just hope we can find out what happened to our people before it's too late." Unsteady. "Full security protocols? I'll alert the High Council." The transmission ended. Kira turned back to the humans, who were watching her with curious expressions. "My superiors want to meet you," she said simply. "Will you follow my ship?" Captain Hayes nodded. "Lead the way, Navigator. We have a lot of questions about what happened to our people." As Kira set course for home, she felt a mixture of excitement and fear. Humans had returned to the galaxy. Nothing would be the same again. A week passed on Zalaxia Prime. The humans adjusted to their new surroundings slowly. The higher gravity made them tire easily, and the food had to be specially prepared for their different biology. But they never complained. Kira noticed how they adapted, finding ways to cope with each challenge. She spent most of her time with them, answering their endless questions about Zolaxian culture and history. In return, they shared stories of Earth and human colonies that had once filled this part of the galaxy. "I still can't believe we've been gone so long," Diane said one evening, as they watched the twin moons rise over the capital city. "Everything we knew is just gone." Kira's scales shifted to a sympathetic blue. "Not everything. Your ship survived. You survived. And there might be others." Greg looked up from the data pad he was studying. "According to these old star charts, there were at least 30 major human colonies. Some of them might have survived whatever happened." Captain Hayes nodded. "That's what keeps me going. The thought that we might not be the last." Their conversation was interrupted when Frank entered the room, his face serious. "Captain, you need to see this." He handed Hayes a small device the humans called a tablet. Hayes studied it, then passed it to the others. Even Kira could see the concern on their faces. "What is it?" she asked. "Ships," Hayes explained. moving towards Zalaxian territory. A lot of them. Before Kira could respond, her communication device buzzed. It was Commander Vex ordering her to bring the humans to an emergency council meeting. The council chamber was large and circular, with seats rising in tiers around a central platform. Director Lenz and Commander Traz sat opposite each other, their staffs arrayed behind them. The mood was tense as Kira led the humans to the visitor seats. Commander Traz stood, his scales dark with accusation. A Vraxian fleet has been detected approaching our border, the largest we have ever seen. Their arrival coincides perfectly with the appearance of these humans. He pointed at Hayes and his crew. That's ridiculous, Hayes said calmly. We have no contact with these Vraxians. We don't even know who they are. Director Lenz raised a hand for silence. The timing is concerning, but there is no evidence linking our guests to our enemies. Who are the Vraxians? Greg asked Kira, quietly. A warrior species from the outer systems, she explained. They've been raiding our borders for years, taking resources and slaves. Lately, their attacks have grown bolder. Commander Traz displayed a holographic map showing the approaching fleet. They will reach our outer colonies in 3 days. Our defenses are not strong enough to stop them. Captain Hayes studied the map carefully. Then he did something unexpected. He stood and walked to the center of the chamber. We can help you, he said. The chamber grew silent. Even Commander Traz seemed surprised. How can 4 humans help against a fleet? Someone called out. Hayes smiled slightly. Our ship's systems contain military technology that may be useful, and we have experience fighting similar threats. Why? Would you help us? Commander Traz demanded. You owe us nothing. Because that's what humans do, Hayes replied simply. We help those in need. And because we need allies, if we're ever going to find out what happened to our people. Director. Lenz's scales brightened with hope. What do you propose, Captain Hayes? Let us examine your defense systems. Let Officer Miller work with your communications team and Officer Winters with your scientists. Chief Rodriguez can train your security forces in human combat tactics. Commander Traz seemed skeptical, but Director Lenz, the next 2 days passed in a blur of activity. The humans worked tirelessly alongside their Zalaxian counterparts, preparing for the Vraxian attack. Diane Miller set up a new communication system that allowed Zalaxian ships to coordinate better than ever before. Greg Winters analyzed Vraxian technology and found weaknesses no one had noticed. Frank Rodriguez taught Zalaxian security forces new combat techniques that used their natural agility to great advantage, and Captain Hayes worked directly with both Director Lenz and Commander Traz, offering strategies that seemed strange but promising. Kira split her time between helping the humans and searching through ancient archives. She believed there might be clues about what happened to humanity hidden in the old records. On the second day, she found something important. Look at this, she said to Hayes, showing him a faded document she had discovered. It's an old battle, report from 195 years ago. It mentions humans fighting alongside Zalaxians against Vraxian raiders. Hayes studied the document with interest. So our peoples were allies before. More than that, Kira said excitedly. It says the humans used unusual tactics that confused the Vraxians. They called it thinking outside the box, whatever that means. Hayes smiled. It means looking at a problem differently than expected. He paused, thinking. This could be useful. The Vraxians might not have changed their tactics much in 200 years. They might still have the same weaknesses against unpredictable approaches. Before they could discuss further, alarms blared throughout the city. The Vraxian fleet had arrived earlier than expected. They had already attacked the outer defense station. In the command center, chaos reigned as reports flooded in. The Vraxian ships were larger and more numerous than intelligence had suggested. The outer defenses were failing quickly. Commander Traz glared at Hayes. Your help doesn't seem to be making much difference. The battle's just beginning, Hayes replied calmly. He turned to Director Lenz. We need to implement the plan now. There's no time to wait. Lenz nodded and gave the order. Kira watched as the defensive fleet reorganized itself according to Hayes's strange strategy. Instead of forming a standard wall formation, the Zolaxian ships broke into small, seemingly random groups. "What are they doing?" Commander Traz demanded. "They're breaking formation. They're using human tactics," Kira explained. "Unpredictable patterns that the Vraxians won't expect." On the large view screen, they could see the Vraxian fleet advancing in tight, ordered rows. They clearly expected the Zolaxians to meet them in a traditional head-on battle. Instead, the smaller Zolaxian ships darted in and out, striking weak points and then retreating before the Vraxians could respond. "It's working!" someone shouted as the first Vraxian ship exploded. But the advantage didn't last long. The Vraxians began to adapt, changing their formation to counter the new tactics. Soon, Zolaxian ships were being destroyed too. "We need something else," Hayes muttered, watching the battle intently. Then his eyes lit up. "The asteroid field. Kira, you said Zolaxian ships can maneuver better in tight spaces than Vraxian ones, right?" Kira nodded. "Yes, we're smaller and more agile." Hayes turned to Lenz. "Order your fleet to retreat into the asteroid field near the third moon. Make it look like you're running away." Lenz hesitated but gave the order. On the screen, the Zolaxian ships turned and fled toward the asteroid field. The Vraxians followed, sensing victory. "Now what?" Commander Traz asked, his scales dark with worry. "Now we spring the trap," Hayes said with a grim smile. He activated his communicator. "Diane, is the special frequency ready?" "Yes, Captain," came the reply. "Ready when you are." Hayes looked at Lenz. "When I give the word, have your ships transmit on this frequency." He handed over a data chip. "It will disrupt the Vraxians' ship-to-ship communication." As the last Zolaxian ship entered the asteroid field, Hayes gave the command. "Now!" The trap was sprung, and the tide of battle began to turn. Nodded eagerly. "Time is short," Lenz said. "We accept your help." As the meeting ended, Kira walked beside Hayes back to their quarters. "Commander Traz still doesn't trust you," she said. Hayes nodded. "I know. But trust has to be earned, and we're about to get that chance." Looking at his determined expression, Kira finally understood why the old stories described humans as both frightening and wonderful. They never gave up, even when facing impossible odds. The effect was immediate and stunning. The Vraxian ships, suddenly unable to communicate with each other, began to collide with asteroids and sometimes with each other. The organized formation fell apart into chaos. The Zolaxian ships, still able to communicate thanks to Diane's special frequency, used their superior maneuverability to weave through the asteroid field. They fired precision shots at the confused Vraxian vessels. In the command center, cheers erupted as the tide of battle turned. Even Commander Traz looked impressed. "It's working," Kira exclaimed. "The Vraxians are retreating." But their celebration was cut short. A massive Vraxian command ship, much larger than the others, appeared at the edge of the system. It sent out a powerful signal that seemed to cut through the disruption. Slowly, the remaining Vraxian ships began to regroup. "They're adapting faster than I expected," Hayes said, frowning. "We need more information about their command structure." Greg Winters, who had been analyzing Vraxian technology, looked up from his console. "Captain, I think I've found something. According to these old records, the Vraxians always follow a central command. If we can capture or disable their command ship, the rest will be disorganized." "Capture a Vraxian ship?" Commander Traz scoffed. "Impossible. Their security is too strong." Hayes exchanged glances with Frank Rodriguez. "Not impossible, just difficult, but we'll need help." To everyone's surprise, Hayes suggested a bold plan. A small team would board the Vraxian command ship. While the Zolaxian fleet kept the other ships busy, they would infiltrate and gather intelligence about why the Vraxians were attacking and what they knew about the fate of humanity. Director Lenz hesitated. "It's extremely dangerous. We've never successfully boarded a Vraxian vessel." "That's because you've never had humans helping you," Hayes said with a confident smile. "We're good at improvising. Against Commander Traz's objections, a team was assembled. Hayes, Frank, 3 Zalaxian security officers, and at her own insistence, Kira. "I've studied Vraxian language and culture," she argued when Hayes questioned her decision. "You'll need a translator." As they prepared for the mission, Kira discovered Hayes in a quiet corner of the ship bay. He was looking at an old photograph of what appeared to be his family. "Are you afraid?" she asked him. Hayes put the photo away. "Only a fool wouldn't be afraid. But fear doesn't have to stop you from doing what's necessary." "Why are you risking your life for us?" Kira asked. "You barely know my people." Hayes was quiet for a moment. "Because it's the right thing to do, and because I think the Vraxians might know what happened to humanity. If they've been your enemies for centuries, they might have been ours too." Their small ship approached the massive Vraxian command vessel under the cover of the ongoing battle. Using a technique Frank called hiding in plain sight, they attached their ship to the Vraxian vessel's blind spot, near the engine exhaust where sensors were less effective. Cutting through the hull was the easy part. Once inside, they moved quietly through dark, narrow corridors. The Vraxians were tall, insect-like beings with 4 arms and hard exoskeletons. They moved with precision and purpose, clearly military in nature. Using Kira's knowledge of the ship's likely layout, they made their way toward the central command area. Along the way, they downloaded data from Vraxian computers using devices Greg had prepared for them. They were almost to the command center when an alarm, so Hayes recovered from his shock first. "You know who we are?" The Vraxian officer's 4 arms remained steady, weapon pointed at the group. "Of course. Humanity has been our greatest enemy for centuries. We thought we had eliminated your kind long ago." Kira translated for the Zalaxian security officers, who tensed, ready to fight. Frank had his weapon aimed at the Vraxian, but Hayes motioned for him to wait. "What happened to Earth? To our colonies?" Hayes demanded. The Vraxian made a clicking sound that might have been laughter. "We destroyed them, human. 200 years ago, after your kind helped the Zalaxians develop defenses against us. Your species was too unpredictable, too dangerous to let live." "You're lying," Hayes said, but doubt showed on his face. "Humanity had settlements across thousands of star systems. You couldn't have found them all." Before the Vraxian could answer, more security forces appeared at the end of the corridor. Frank fired first, creating cover as Hayes pulled Kira behind a wall junction. The fight was intense but brief. The team retreated toward their ship, the downloaded data their only prize. As they ran, the Vraxian officer called after them. "Run. All you want, humans. There are only 4 of you left in the galaxy." They made it back to their ship and detached from the Vraxian vessel under heavy fire. 2 of the Zolaxian officers were injured, but everyone survived. As they sped back toward the Zolaxian fleet, Kira saw Hayes staring silently at the Vraxian command ship. "Do you believe what he said?" she asked quietly. "About destroying humanity?" Hayes shook his head. "Not entirely. If they truly eliminated all humans, why do they still fear us? No, I think some survived. Somewhere." When they returned to Zolaxia Prime, Greg analyzed the stolen data. What he found confirmed Hayes' suspicion. There were survivors, Greg announced to the gathered council. According to these records, human colonies in the far Omega sector escaped the Vraxian purge. The Vraxians have been hunting for them ever since. "That's on the other side of the galaxy," Director Lenz said, "beyond our star charts." "But not beyond hope," Hayes replied. Outside the council chamber, an urgent message arrived. The remaining Vraxian fleet was launching a final desperate attack on Zolaxia Prime itself. Their command ship led the assault, its weapons more powerful than anything the Zolaxians had seen before. "They're targeting our defense grid," Commander Traz reported grimly. "If it falls, the city is defenseless." Captain Hayes looked at his crew. They were tired, but determination showed on their faces. "We still have the horizon," he said. "Its systems are different from Zolaxian technology. The Vraxians won't expect it." The plan was dangerous but simple. While the Zolaxian fleet engaged the Vraxian ships, the Horizon would attack the command ship directly. Diane had discovered a weakness in its shield pattern. Kira insisted on joining them. I'm your navigator, remember? I know these star systems better than anyone. The battle was fierce. The Horizon, piloted by Kira and Hayes, weaved through laser fire and debris, heading straight for the Vraxian command ship. Greg and Diane worked the weapons while Frank protected the ship's vulnerable areas. At the crucial moment, Kira guided the Horizon into perfect position. The human ship fired its main weapon directly at the weak point in the Vraxian shields. The command ship's engines exploded, sending it spinning out of control. With their command gone, the remaining Vraxian ships retreated in disorder. The celebration on Zolaxia Prime lasted for days. The humans were hailed as heroes. Even Commander Traz acknowledged their contribution. In the aftermath, Director Lenz made an unprecedented offer: a joint mission to find the lost human colonies in the Omega Sector. The Horizon would be refitted and upgraded, with a mixed crew of humans and Zolaxians. "We were allies once," Lenz said. "We should be again." On the day of departure, Kira stood on the bridge of the Horizon as its new navigation officer. "Captain." Hayes sat in the command chair, looking at the stars on the view screen. "Ready to find your people, Captain?" Kira asked. Hayes smiled. "Ready to make more than just stories." The Horizon left orbit, carrying with it the hope of two civilizations and the beginning of a new legend, Undid. They had been discovered. "Run." Hayes ordered as Vraxian security forces converged on their position. They raced through the corridors, firing back at their pursuers. As they rounded a corner, they found themselves face to face with a Vraxian officer. Before anyone could react, the officer spoke in perfect human language. So the legends were true. "Humans have returned,"